Don't bother calling me John. I need a break, alone. Those were the last words Clara texted before blocking her husband's number and boarding a flight she claimed was for business. What she didn't know was that John had already seen her secret messages and booked the seat right behind her on that same plane. Viewers, have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted enough to share your world with? How far would you go if the truth stared you in the face, and your heart refused to believe it? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe, like, comment and watch till the ending to share this interesting story to family and friends. John had always thought of himself as a perceptive man, but recently something felt off. Clara, his wife of 7 years, had begun to change. Subtle at first, almost imperceptible, but unmistakable if you were paying attention. She smiled less at dinner, lingered too long on her phone, and seemed to vanish for hours with excuses that didn't quite add up. That evening, John returned home from work, exhausted from a 12-hour day at the law firm. He expected the usual: Clara bustling in the kitchen, the scent of garlic and herbs filling the air, the comforting noise of their small home. But the house was unusually quiet. A cold wave of unease washed over him. "Clara?" he called out softly, dropping his briefcase. Silence. His heart started to pound, not with fear exactly but with a growing sense of being excluded from something. He picked up his phone and typed a quick message: "Dinner at 7?" Almost immediately he noticed something that made his stomach drop. His message wasn't going through. Confused, he tried calling. It went straight to voicemail. Then he tried WhatsApp, Instagram, even Messenger. Every attempt was blocked. Blocked. John sank onto the couch, running a hand through his hair. His mind raced. Why would she block him? They weren't having a fight, or at least not one that would warrant this. Panic tried to creep in, but he pushed it away, forcing himself to think logically. Could it be a glitch? Temporary? He tried to shake off the dark thoughts, but deep down he knew. He had been sensing the cracks in their marriage for months. He rifled through recent interactions, trying to piece together her unusual behavior. Late nights at the office, vague mentions of friends he'd never met, phone calls she took privately and quickly ended. Everything pointed to one unavoidable conclusion. Clara was hiding something, and now she had deliberately cut him out. John's hands tightened into fists. Anger surged, hot and sharp, but underneath it all, there was a profound sting of betrayal. This wasn't just about a secret. It was about being erased from her world without warning, humiliated in silence. He spent the night pacing their small living room, replaying every conversation, every suspicious detail. Was he imagining things? Was it paranoia? But he knew his instincts had never failed him before. Something was happening and he couldn't ignore it. By midnight, John resolved that he wouldn't confront Clara blindly. He would find the truth no matter what it took. There had to be a plan, a way to understand the depth of her deception before making any rash moves. The quiet house seemed heavier now, almost oppressive as he realized the truth. The woman he had married, the person he had trusted with his entire life, was deliberately shutting him out. And yet, even in that darkness, a small spark of determination flickered inside him. If Clara thought she could humiliate him and escape unscathed, she was gravely mistaken. John's heart hardened with a resolve he hadn't felt in years. The next step would define everything. What he did next could either destroy him or set him free. The next morning, John woke up to the faint hum of the ceiling fan. The other side of the bed was empty, cold, untouched. Clara hadn't come home that night. Her absence confirmed what his instincts had been screaming. But instead of rage, he felt an eerie calm settle over him. If she thought she could deceive him in peace, she had underestimated the man she married. He sat at the dining table, his laptop open, sipping coffee gone cold as he methodically pieced together a plan. Confrontation would give her the upper hand, she could lie, twist things, play the victim. But evidence, undeniable and irrefutable, would strip away her mask completely. He began where she least expected, her email. Clara wasn't careless, but she wasn't meticulous either. Months ago, she'd asked him to help reset her email password after forgetting it. He still remembered the new one. Heart pounding, he typed it in. The inbox opened. John scrolled past the mundane, shopping receipts, newsletters, work messages, until one name caught his eye: Daniel M. The subject line read, "Our getaway plans, Red Heart." His pulse quickened. He clicked it open. "Can't wait to be away from everything. Finally just us. I've booked the suite for Friday. Don't worry about John, he'll never find out. You said you blocked him everywhere, right?" John froze. The air in the room thickened. His worst fears weren't just true, they were worse than he'd imagined. Clara had deliberately blocked him to ensure he couldn't reach her during her secret trip. The hotel name was mentioned. Oasis Springs Resort, a luxury hideaway 3 hours away from the city. He sat back in stunned silence, staring at the screen. Images of their wedding day flashed through his mind. Her smile, her promises, the woman he thought he knew. Then came the bitterness of realization. She was probably packing right now, preparing for that romantic weekend. But John didn't act impulsively. He printed the email, saved screenshots, and started digging deeper. Through her travel history, he found digital confirmations of flight tickets, dinner reservations, and even a spa appointment, all matching Daniel's name. She had planned every detail. He clenched his jaw, suppressing the storm within. Revenge wasn't about shouting or fighting, it was about exposing the truth so clearly that it couldn't be denied. He reached out to his old friend, Mark, a tech specialist. "Can you help me with something discreet?" John asked. Mark didn't pry, he simply installed a location tracking app connected to Clara's shared digital calendar, something she never checked. John wasn't invading her privacy for curiosity, he was seeking the truth that she had deliberately hidden. By the time evening came, John knew everything. Dates, destinations, and even Daniel's background. A quick search revealed that Daniel wasn't some mysterious stranger. He was a married businessman, notorious in the city for his affairs with wealthy women. John leaned back, his heart no longer racing with anger but cold determination. Clara wasn't just cheating, she was walking into a mess that would soon consume her. And when she thought she was enjoying her perfect secret weekend, John would be there, not with words, but with a revelation that would shake everyone involved. By Friday morning, John was ready. He had barely slept, but every detail was in place. He knew where Clara was headed, what time her flight left, even the type of suite Daniel had booked for their secret getaway at Oasis Springs Resort. As he watched her pack that morning, pretending to be casual, it took every ounce of strength to stay silent. Clara wore a calm smile, too calm, too rehearsed. She had told him earlier in the week that she'd be traveling to Lagos for a business seminar. The same excuse she had used twice before. "Drive safe," John said, leaning on the doorway. His voice was steady but his heart burned. "I will," she replied, not meeting his eyes. "Don't wait up for me. I might stay an extra day." Her suitcase wheels clicked on the tile as she left. The sound stayed in his ears long after the door closed. He waited 30 minutes before moving. Then he grabbed his car keys, a small duffel bag, and the folder of evidence he'd collected. If she thought she could humiliate him behind his back, she was about to learn that deceit had consequences. The drive to Oasis Springs Resort was long, quiet, and tense. The road stretched endlessly between green hills, but John's mind was focused on one thing: truth. As he approached the entrance, the massive resort sign loomed ahead. "Welcome to Oasis Springs, where love and luxury meet." The irony cut deep. He checked in under a false name, Mr. Harris, claiming to be attending a business conference. The receptionist smiled and handed him a room key. From his vantage point near the lobby, he could see the open courtyard, a garden of blooming hibiscus and palm trees swaying in the warm afternoon breeze. And then he saw her. Clara walked in, radiant, dressed in a light floral dress that flowed around her like a model on vacation. Her laughter echoed softly as Daniel followed, holding her hand. John felt his stomach twist, but he stayed still, his face expressionless. She looked nothing like the woman he shared a home with, no trace of guilt, no hesitation. Just happiness, careless and shameless. They checked in together, requesting a honeymoon suite. John listened, his jaw tightening as the receptionist congratulated them. He followed at a safe distance, memorizing every detail. Later that night, from the balcony of his own room overlooking the pool, he watched them dine on the terrace. Wine glasses raised, candles flickering, fingers intertwined. Each gesture was a dagger, each smile a betrayal replaying in slow motion. He quietly recorded snippets, photos, videos, timestamps. It wasn't about revenge anymore, it was about clarity. The truth needed no words, only proof. As the night deepened, John sat alone in his room reviewing the footage. Every image confirmed what his heart had already accepted. Clara wasn't just unfaithful, she was gone in spirit long before this trip began. But he also knew something she didn't. This entire affair, this perfect secret escape, was now in his hands. The next move would be his, and when it came, no one would see it coming. Morning sunlight filtered through the glass walls of the resort, casting a golden glow over everything. But for John, it was the calm before a storm. He sat by the window of his suite, sipping black coffee and replaying the videos he'd taken the previous night. Each frame was evidence, undeniable and raw. Clara laughing, Daniel holding her waist, their lips meeting under the soft glow of resort lights. He had everything he needed. But something inside him refused to act out of blind rage. His revenge had to be calculated, controlled, and above all, irrefutable. At noon, John left his room wearing a crisp white shirt and sunglasses. He blended easily with the guests lounging by the pool, unnoticed. He trailed Clara and Daniel discreetly as they moved from the spa to the restaurant. They were completely at ease, believing they were hidden from the world. Clara's laughter carried through the air. "It feels good to finally be free," she said, twirling her drink. "Free from what?" Daniel teased. "From pretending," she replied softly, "from that dull marriage. John never knew how to make me feel alive." Those words hit him like a blade twisting in his chest, but John didn't flinch. He simply tapped his phone screen, saving the audio. Each lie, each insult, was fuel for what came next. That afternoon he met with a resort staff member named Alex, a friendly young man he'd befriended the night before. John slipped him a generous tip and asked for a small favor, to help him book a private dinner in the open courtyard for that evening. Alex smiled, unaware of the deeper plan, and agreed. By sunset, the courtyard was set, lanterns glowing, tables lined up elegantly for couples. Clara and Daniel walked in hand, expecting an intimate dinner, unaware that John had reserved a seat at the far end, blending with the evening crowd. As they toasted to new beginnings, John signaled Alex quietly. Within minutes, the resort's large LED screen, usually used for music visuals, flickered to life. The first image appeared. Clara froze. It was her, laughing in Daniel's arms at the pool. Then another clip, her whispering that she'd blocked her husband so he'd never ruin her peace. The courtyard fell silent. Guests turned toward the screen, murmuring. Clara's face drained of color. "John?" she whispered, trembling. Daniel stood, anger rising. "What the hell is this?" John rose slowly, calm and composed, every eye now fixed on him. "This," he said evenly, "is the truth. Since you both enjoyed lying in private, I thought you should experience honesty in public." Clara's lips quivered. "You followed me?" "No," John said coldly. "You led me here." Daniel cursed under his breath and stormed out, leaving Clara standing amid whispers and stares. She reached out, tears brimming, but John stepped back. "I gave you my trust," he said, voice low but firm. "You gave me a performance. Now everyone's seen your masterpiece." He turned and walked away, leaving her surrounded by silent witnesses and her own shame. The shock wasn't in his anger, it was in his calm. He didn't shout, didn't humiliate her further. He simply exposed the truth, and that truth spoke louder than any revenge ever could. The night air at Oasis Springs had never felt colder. The courtyard that once buzzed with laughter was now filled with whispers and shocked glances. Guests murmured in disbelief while staff exchanged uneasy looks. In the middle of it all, Clara stood frozen, her once perfect composure shattered. The resort's ambient music had stopped, replaced by a heavy silence that seemed to press down on everyone. Her wine glass trembled in her hand before it slipped, shattering against the tiles. "John," she whispered, her voice cracking, "please, just listen." But John didn't stop. He walked toward the exit, his expression unreadable, not triumphant, not angry, just empty. Behind him, Clara stumbled after him, barefoot now, her heels abandoned somewhere near the table. "John, wait," she cried. "It's not what you think." He turned slowly, his calm voice cutting through the chaos. "It's exactly what I think. I've seen enough." Tears rolled down her face as she tried to reach for his arm, but he stepped back. The sight of her, once so confident, now desperate, didn't give him satisfaction, only confirmation. This was no misunderstanding. This was the truth laid bare for everyone to see. Daniel, her so-called lover, was nowhere in sight. The man who had promised her freedom had fled the moment the lights came on. Typical. Clara glanced around, realizing she was truly alone. "John, please," she begged again. "I made a mistake. I didn't mean to hurt you." John's eyes narrowed. "A mistake?" he said slowly. "You blocked your husband, lied about work, and ran away with another man. That's not a mistake, Clara. That's a decision." Her sobs deepened. "I didn't know how to tell you. I just felt trapped." John exhaled deeply, staring at the woman he had once loved. "You didn't feel trapped. You felt bored. There's a difference." He could have walked away then, but something inside him refused to end it with silence. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about closure. He motioned toward the stunned crowd and said quietly, "Do you see them? You humiliated me in private. I only returned the courtesy in public. Her knees buckled slightly as she covered her face. Please, can we just go somewhere and talk? John looked at her for a long moment. There's nothing left to talk about, Clara. I'll send the divorce papers when I get home. With that, he turned away once more. This time he didn't look back. As he walked past the resort gates, the night breeze carried faint whispers behind him, pity, shock, disbelief. But none of it mattered anymore. For the first time in months, John felt strangely light, as though the weight that had been pressing on his chest had finally lifted. Behind him, Clara sank to her knees under the warm glow of the lanterns, surrounded by fragments of broken glass and a truth she could no longer hide from. John didn't smile. He didn't gloat. He simply walked into the night, calm, steady, and free. By the next morning, Oasis Springs Resort was buzzing. The scandal had traveled faster than wildfire. Guests who had witnessed the scene recorded fragments of it, short videos, blurry photos, whispers turned into posts. By sunrise, the internet had done what it always did best: amplify everything. Wife caught cheating on husband during secret trip, one caption read. Man exposes unfaithful wife in front of everyone at resort, another said. John never posted anything himself. He didn't have to. The truth had already escaped the confines of that courtyard. He sat quietly in his car, parked at a fuel station just outside the resort. His phone buzzed nonstop with messages from friends and family. Some expressed shock, others offered sympathy, but he didn't reply. He just stared out the windshield, lost in thought. For the first time he felt no anger, just relief. A deep, aching relief that came from finally seeing things for what they were. Meanwhile, Clara was living through the other side of the storm. By mid-morning, her world had started crumbling. Friends called to ask what had happened. Her workplace, where she'd been a respected event planner, had already seen the viral clips. Her boss requested a meeting she didn't have the courage to attend. At the resort, Daniel had vanished completely. His phone was switched off, his belongings gone. Clara sat alone in her suite, scrolling through comment sections that tore her reputation apart. Imagine blocking your husband to go cheat. Shameful. She thought she was smart until the truth came out. How do you betray someone who loved you like that? Each comment was a dagger. She broke down, realizing that she hadn't just lost John, she'd lost everything. Back in the city, John arrived home late in the evening. The familiar scent of their house hit him, stirring memories he didn't want to revisit. He walked straight to the living room, removed every framed photo of them together and placed them in a box. His phone rang again. This time it was Clara. He hesitated before answering. John, please? Her voice cracked through the speaker. I can't breathe. Everyone's calling. My family knows. Please, let's talk. He sighed quietly. Clara, I'm not doing this to destroy you, he said. You destroyed yourself the moment you chose deceit over honesty. She sobbed. I made a mistake, No, he interrupted softly. You made a choice. And now you're facing its cost. He ended the call gently without anger and turned his phone off. He didn't need her explanations. The world had already seen the truth and he had seen enough. That night, as he sat alone on the balcony, a strange peace settled over him. The pain was still there, but it no longer controlled him. He realized that sometimes, the greatest revenge wasn't loud, it was silence, dignity, and walking away without looking back. And in that silence, John finally reclaimed something Clara could never take from him again: his peace of mind. A week had passed since the incident at Oasis Springs, but for Clara, it felt like a lifetime. Her phone wouldn't stop ringing, friends, relatives, co-workers, all demanding explanations she couldn't give. Her mother had called in tears, her father refused to speak to her, and her siblings avoided her entirely. Everywhere she turned, the whispers followed. In public, people recognized her face. Online, her name had become a trending topic for all the wrong reasons. She had moved out of the apartment temporarily, staying with a distant cousin. The silence in that unfamiliar room was deafening. Gone were the designer dresses Daniel had bought her. Gone was the illusion of love and freedom she'd chased. She had traded loyalty for excitement, and ended up with nothing. Meanwhile, John's life had shifted in quiet but powerful ways. He returned to work, greeted by sympathetic glances and awkward pats on the shoulder, but he handled it all with grace. He never spoke ill of Clara. He didn't need to. His calmness spoke louder than any bitterness could. At home, he had rearranged the living room, cleared her things, and repainted the walls a lighter shade. It was his way of reclaiming the space, not as a shrine to what was lost, but as a symbol of what could still be rebuilt. Then one rainy evening, a soft knock echoed through the door. John hesitated, already knowing who it was. He opened it slowly. There she stood, Clara, drenched, shivering, eyes red and swollen. "John," she whispered, her voice trembling, "please? I just need to talk." He didn't say a word, just stepped aside and gestured toward the couch. She walked in hesitantly, glancing around at the emptiness of what used to be their shared home. "I've lost everything," she began, clutching her wet purse. "My job, my family, my reputation. I don't even have Daniel anymore. He blocked me after everything went public." Her words broke into sobs. "I know I don't deserve it, but I'm begging you for a chance to make things right." John's face softened, but his eyes remained steady. "Clara, do you know what hurt me the most?" She shook her head slowly. "It wasn't that you cheated," he said quietly. "It was that you looked at me every day, lied to my face, and thought I'd never find out. You didn't just betray our marriage, you insulted my trust." "I was stupid," she sobbed. "Please, I'll do anything, therapy, counseling, anything you want." He looked at her for a long moment, then said gently, "Clara, forgiveness doesn't always mean reunion. Sometimes it just means letting go." Her tears fell faster. "So, that's it?" He nodded. "That's it." She lowered her head, realizing that the calm man before her wasn't broken anymore. He was free. As she left, the rain poured harder, masking her cries. John closed the door, leaned against it, and exhaled. For the first time in years, his heart felt light. It wasn't revenge that set him free. It was peace. Months passed and life slowly settled into a new rhythm. The noise from the scandal had faded, replaced by the quiet hum of normal days. John no longer woke up to check his phone for updates or wonder where Clara was. Those old habits, born of suspicion and pain, had died the same day he chose peace over revenge. The house felt different now, lighter, calmer. The walls he had once repainted now held new memories, framed photos of places he'd visited alone, books stacked by the couch, a potted plant he had somehow managed to keep alive. It wasn't just a house anymore, it was a reflection of a man who had learned to stand again. He had started running in the mornings, something he'd never had time for before. It cleared his mind. He'd also taken up writing, a small blog at first, where he anonymously shared stories about love, betrayal, and healing. To his surprise, people began to read them. Some shared their own stories in return, thanking him for his honesty and calm wisdom. One afternoon, as he sat at a cafe downtown, sipping coffee and typing another post, a young woman approached his table. "Excuse me," she said shyly, "are you the writer of The Man Who Chose Peace?" John smiled faintly. "Yeah, that's me. I just wanted to say, your story helped me leave a toxic relationship," she said softly. "You made me realize that walking away doesn't mean weakness." He thanked her quietly, and as she left, he sat back, watching the world pass by through the window. There was no bitterness left in him, only clarity. Elsewhere, Clara was living a very different life. She had taken a job in another city, keeping to herself. Her once bright spirit was dimmed by regret, but she was trying, attending therapy, rebuilding her relationship with her family, and facing the consequences of her choices one day at a time. Sometimes she wrote to John, short messages filled with apology and gratitude, but he never replied. Not out of spite, just because there was nothing left to say. Some chapters end not with anger but with acceptance. One evening, as the sun dipped low, John sat on his balcony overlooking the city. He opened his journal and wrote the final entry to his story. "Peace isn't given by others, it's built by the choices we make after pain. Forgiveness isn't about forgetting the past, it's about refusing to let it control the future." He closed the notebook, exhaled deeply, and smiled, a genuine, quiet smile. The man who had once been broken was now whole again. He had lost a marriage, yes, but he had gained something far greater: wisdom, freedom, and the strength to start anew. And as the city lights flickered to life below, John whispered softly to himself, "Sometimes the best revenge is simply becoming everything they thought you couldn't be." He stood, stretched, and walked inside, ready for whatever came next. Subscribe, like, comment, and share for more interesting stories.